You know, oftentimes when you talk about an eatery, you talk about what there is to like. Well, at Newk's, I'm going to ask the question, what's not to like? Everything is terrific at Newk's. 205 University Boulevard East, just up from the University of Alabama campus. Open for lunch and dinner 7 days a week. The food is terrific, the service is outstanding, and the atmosphere is top-notch. That's why people who try Newk's once go back time and time again. Call them for all your catering needs, 758-2455. Don't forget about their terrific dessert menu featuring cakes, brownies, and Rice Krispie treats. That's Newk's Express Cafe, 205 University Boulevard East in Tuscaloosa. Well, Old Overton Golf Club in Vestavia was hopping last week. The annual golf tournament to benefit Knicks kids was held there again this year. The tournament, which is hosted by Alabama head football coach Nick Saban and his wife Terry, is a major fundraiser for the Knicks Kids Fund. Knicks Kids distributes hundreds of thousands of dollars each year to various children's organizations and charities in Alabama. Prior to teeing off, the coach met with reporters, and one of the topics that came up, well, you can probably guess, expansion.
It is a little crazy, you know, because there are some traditions in college football, the Southeastern Conference, the Big Ten, ACC, and I know used to be the Southwest Conference, but the Big 12 sort of took that, and there are those traditions, and I think this sort of a breakup that may occur is something that violates that a little bit.
And I think traditionalists like myself are glad that that breakup is not necessarily going to occur, Rodney. Colorado's leaving to go to the Pac-10, Nebraska to the Big Ten, but the other 10 Big 12 schools have announced they are staying. Of course, Texas drives the train out there, and Texas's president and athletic director saying today we're staying in the Big 12. Although I do have a question for you. Now that the Big 10 has 12 teams and the Big 12 has 10, what are we
change names.
Yeah. But I'm kind of glad myself.
Yeah.
I know it's coming. There's going to be changes, but I don't like the idea of these 16, 18-team super conferences.
Well, and I'm a traditionalist too, Gary, like you, Coach Saban, and a lot of other college football fans. And, of course, growing up in the state of Texas for as many years as I did, certainly you cannot imagine that Texas A&M and Texas would be split, you know, in different conferences. So, again, I think for college football's sake, I'm glad that they're sticking together.
Had the Big 12 broken up, there was a good chance Texas A&M was heading to the SEC, but not going to happen. Well, tell you what, we are ready to talk some football recruiting, also ready to take some phone calls here on the program. The number 205-348-9882. Give us a ring if you would like. And also, you can email us at the address there on your screen. We mentioned Vinny Sunseri earlier. When we come back, we're going to break down Alabama's latest commitment here on TITV. Welcome back, everybody. Time to talk recruiting. As we mentioned at the top of the show, Alabama now has 14 commitments for the class of 2011. The latest coming from Vinny Sunseri, linebacker out of Tuscaloosa Northridge High School. 5'11" is what it says here. Some people say he's 6 feet, but he's a terrific football player. And for people like you and I who are familiar with his dad, Sal, who was a tenacious linebacker under those great teams that Jackie Sherrill had in the late 70s and early 80s at Pittsburgh, Vinny's the same type of player. Nose for the ball, great instincts, good speed. Playing linebacker in high school, could wind up playing strong safety, but this is a kid that gets around the football, and when he gets there, he knows what to do. You know, it's about sight. Defensive football, Rodney, as we know, sight, movement, and contact. You got to see the play, you got to get to the play, and you got to hit somebody when you get there, and he'll do all three.
Yeah, and Vinny Sunseri, as you mentioned, Gary, a lot like his dad was at Pitt, but faster. You know, talking to people that know the two, certainly. Vinny Sunseri, an excellent athlete, and committed to Alabama over Pittsburgh despite the family ties. Of course, you know his brother is a freshman, redshirt freshman up at Pitt, Tino, and probably going to be the starting quarterback.
Going to get to play in what is now his hometown, Tuscaloosa, since they've been there for a couple of years, and also, of course, play to some degree for his dad, who's a defensive assistant. So he said that was going to be a thrill for him. And, of course, obviously the prospect of playing for Nick Saban appealed to Vinny Sunseri as well. Well, he's in the fold. Let's talk about some other uncommitted prospects that Alabama has been recruiting. And Josh Pinkston, remember his brother Todd a few years ago, was a top flight wide receiver at Southern Miss, then in the NFL. Josh Pinkston came to camp and received an offer.
Yep, we had the story last week, Gary, that he turned some heads here at Alabama's camp and got the offer on Friday from Coach Signetti and Coach Bo Davis, two tied assistants. And, you know, when you look at him, he's kind of a guy, I guess you would call him a sleeper in terms of not a lot of schools have offered him yet. The Mississippi schools in there, and, you know, certainly Southern Mississippi where his brother played. And, you know, he's an outstanding prospect. And, again, we'll probably see as time goes along more offers pour in for Josh Pinkston.
Well, I was going to say he's no longer a sleeper.
Right.
Because once Alabama offers you,
that's
our
right.
sleeper is gone. Hey, Brandon Shell has the bloodlines and he has the size, Rodney.
Yep, and TigerInsider.com had the story last Thursday that Brandon Shell and his uncle, Art Shell, the former Raider coach, former Raider player, Hall of Famer, were here in Tuscaloosa making an unofficial visit to see the campus. And Brandon Shell, one of the top offensive linemen in the country, obviously. Got the size, Gary, to be a tremendous tackle, the athletic ability. Alabama, South Carolina, Clemson, Georgia, among his top schools. And, you know, again, Brandon Shell, when you look at him, he wants to stay close to the Atlanta area because that's where his uncle Art Shell is based out of. And, you know, he wants his uncle and his family to be able to see him play easily. A lot of people think it may be difficult to get him out of the state of South Carolina, but we'll see.
Alabama's in on so many top-flight offensive linemen. Ryan Kelly out of Ohio is another.
Yep, Ryan Kelly, Gary, a year ago this time he was kind of a suspect, and over the past year he's grown 2 inches, gained 35 pounds, and he became a top-notch prospect. You're talking about Alabama, Florida, Florida State, Tennessee, Michigan, all of those schools, as well as Cincinnati, in on Ryan Kelly. He had a great visit to Alabama last week. You know, personally, Gary, just the feel of it, I think Ryan Kelly at this point kind of, though he didn't say it, kind of favors Alabama.
Rodney, am I even close here? Villa Ami Moala, is that
That's
even
close, Viami Moala.
Okay.
And again, Alabama got Isaac Latua a couple of weeks ago, a Samoan from the West Coast, and he's going to help recruit Viami Moala for Alabama. And a tremendous defensive tackle prospect. Gary has offers from all over the country. And we had a story today, in fact, on our website about Viami. And, you know, again, the difficult thing for him is going to be coming that far from home.
And don't let the picture fool you. He is a teenager. He just looks like he's 30. Trey DePriest is a highly touted linebacker, and boy, Alabama's made a strong impression on him.
Yeah, probably no secret that it's going to come down between Alabama and Ohio State for Trey, though Florida is still somewhat in the mix, I guess, and LSU has been mentioned. But again, Alabama and Ohio State. Trey was here last week, had a great visit, talked to the assistant coach that came down here and worked the camp, brought Trey down, Coach John Cups, and he said, you know, what else can you say? He had a tremendous visit. It's Alabama. He's been there before. Gave him an opportunity. In fact, he hung around quite a bit, Gary, with Benny Sinceri. They're really good friends. So I think Alabama's in really good shape with Trey DePriest, but we are talking about, and we've said this many times, anytime you play in the state of a traditional power like an Ohio State or an LSU, where they are the state school, it's very difficult to get guys out there when it's all said and done. But again, I think Alabama's in good shape with Trey DePriest.
All right, that's our recruiting wrap-up for this week. Thanks, Rodney. Let's go to the phones. Tim in Coleman has been waiting patiently. Tim, how are you?
All right, guys. How y'all doing?
Doing well.
Hey, I just wanted to touch on the ladies' season this year in softball and the guys in baseball. I think both teams done an excellent job, and I just want to give them a big roll tide.
Thank you, Tim. They deserve it. I'll tell you what's interesting, Rodney, is the postseason, you just never know. I mean, when you looked at these two clubs, who would have ever dreamed that the Alabama softball team would not get out of Tuscaloosa?
Yeah.
And that even though they came within one game of getting the World Series themselves, but that the Alabama baseball team would win the regional, win the super regional, or make it to the super regional and come within one game themselves. I mean, if you looked at these two teams, you would have said the Alabama softball team's going to the World Series, no doubt about it. The baseball team won't have a chance, but both teams had great years.
Yeah, and it's kind of unfair to the softball team, Gary, because a lot of people might think of it in terms of their past success and look at this season as somewhat of a disappointment. But really, what the job that Patrick Murphy did was a great job. Look at the players he lost from that leadership from the past few years. And, you know, they lost 5 key players from the year before. And what they did in terms of replacing those players and getting as far as they did, doing as well as they did, having that long winning streak. I thought it was a great season.
Yeah, I think both teams really overachieved, if you want to be honest about it, and great things are in the future, no doubt about it. Okay, let's go to West Blockton and speak with Trey. Trey, what's going on, my man?
Hey, not a whole lot. How y'all doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, I was wondering about Reggie Golden, outfielder from Wetumpka. I know he second-round pick, but he didn't sneak into the first round. He wasn't a compensatory pick. You know,
Trey, he's a young man, as you said, raw athlete. To be honest with you, he was a second-round pick with the Cubs. I think he'll probably sign. He's probably a kid, in my opinion, that's more suited to play in the professional game where he can get 300 or 400 at-bats. He's really not a very good hitter at this point. Now, obviously, Alabama would love to have him, but I think he may be more suited to go on to professional baseball, and that's what I would expect him to do. Second-round bonus money is pretty good, but we'll see. He's a kid that, like I said, raw. Has all the tools, though. If he winds up at Alabama, he could really help them out there in the outfield. Okay, thanks for the calls. We'll try to get some more phone calls on 205-348-WVUA. That'll be coming up when we return right after this.